So this is where bad ideas come from. So Max Fawcett, never heard of him before, decided to write an article about the virtues of taxing home equity. Now, this is obviously a devastatingly unpopular idea for a number of good reasons. Well, first reason is a lot of folks they accrue their wealth in the value of the home. Now, that could be a good or a bad thing, but it's just something that is the case. They depend on the equity in their home for their retirement when they sell the house after a number of years. They're usually hoping that they can get a certain return or a certain amount of cash out of their home, right? And that's all in the equity. Now, it's not a great idea to rely on your home equity for your retirement, but a lot of people do. And really, what a tax would do is just lower the amount of cash available for them to be able to do that, for them to be able to have a retirement. So usually just you just stealing from seniors in a sense. Now, now I'm being a bit over the top, and I'm probably going to be very over the top as I'm discussing this because I think the whole concept is really insane. I mean, why are we looking for new ways to tax people instead of just figuring out ways to grow the tax revenue that we already are receiving? I mean, we all we do is continuously look for new ways to tax instead of looking for opportunities to grow the tax base and grow the revenue. So instead of trying to look at any particular individual and thinking of how we can, or group of individuals, and thinking of how we can increase the tax burden on that particular class, what we should be trying to do is thinking of how we can get, increase every individual's income, increase every individual's amount of wealth, so that way they end up just through the increased transactions, through the growth in their income, we can grow our tax revenues as well. And in, also, if we do that, one thing we can keep in mind, or one thing to keep in mind is if you do that, you also create a group of people that are less reliant on tax revenues or are less reliant on services from the government. So I think really that's my position. Like that's just to give you my bias. My perspective is always focusing on ways to increase the wealth of people, especially those that are lower on the lower tier of things, lower income. How do we increase their income? How do we increase their wealth? And it's not just a matter of taking money from people that have money and then creating more services. Not to say that that's always a bad idea, but is that really addressing the core issue? If the core issue is that people don't have money, then the solution to that is helping them get more money, right? And you don't do that by just handing them more money. And really, the concern is as well when you just continuously think of new ways to create taxes, what you're going to do is you're going to create just more work, just generally more work, right? You're going to create uh, more work for accountants to figure out how to evade or delay or defer those taxes. Um, yeah, that's really what you're going to do. And then the people that end up paying for the taxes are usually going to be not your intended target. So I'm just saying all that off the top, but you can, yeah, I guess you have to look it up because I'm not going to provide, and maybe I'll provide some stuff in the description. Anyway, so just go through this article very quickly. I'm just going to provide a critique on it and just why I think this way of thinking is just so lazy, I guess is the best way to put it. Lazy and just reeks of envy and just doesn't make a lot of sense at all. I'm not even necessarily against I'm not against taxes in a general sense. I'm not even against necessarily a new kind of tax. It just has to make sense. Um, and usually it doesn't. Usually it just comes from a very a place of laziness and a lack of creativity and envy. That's usually where this comes from. So when people, typically the kinds of people that suggest a new tax, they usually fall into those categories. Not to say that you're not intelligent, usually just lazy, right? Just lazy thinking. Again, I don't know anything about Max Fawcett, but yeah. Anyways, so I'm not trying to impugn his character or anything, but let's go through the article. So when it comes to suicidal political strategies, as mentioned, suicidal. There might be not be anything more obviously fatal than taxing the equity that people have in their homes, as an entire generation prepares for retirement that will be funded in whole or in part by extraordinary gains in house prices. That equity is one of the largest sources of untaxed wealth in this country. So none of that means anything. Extraordinary gains. What? I mean, that's just, I guess, in a sense, the luck of the draw. I mean, just because they were able to be in the right place at the right time, that means they should be, because it necessarily is a punishment, right? You're taking something from them because they did well as a punishment. So they should be punished for that. I don't really understand the purpose. Um, I mean, oh, you did well, so we should take money from you, even though this is your retirement fund, and people having trouble, making it through retirement. We still think that this is the more appropriate to take money from you. All this is gonna, I mean, the I think the obvious effect on this is people will probably delay the disposition of their properties even longer because they don't want to face any taxes. And what may happen is they, instead of disposing the property, they would just do a reverse mortgage. That's it, and it's going to just use up all the equity in the property. So people are understandably pretty touchy about the subject, and yet there's been much speculation lately that the federal government is planning to do exactly that. Last year, the Conservative Party of Canada circulated literature suggesting that Liberals were planning to impose such a tax, though they were not. I mean, they have not. Um, who knows? Who really knows? When it comes to anything that I'm not necessarily saying that they were or they weren't, but usually when it comes to political parties, I mean, they all lie a lot, right? And I would never just trust them on face value. Just because they said something, it doesn't mean that that was actually their intent or anything. They lie a lot, like especially Canadian parties. Well, I know Canada, we're Canadian, but they lie a lot. So I never take them at their word. There's just no point. There's literally no point of doing that. Either something happens or it doesn't happen. What they say is beside the point. And yet, there has been much speculation lately that the federal government has planned to do exactly that. Again, though they were not. And last month, a story from an Ottawa-based news outlet called Blacklock's Reporter breathed new life into the idea by reporting on a $250,000 grant awarded to Generation Squeeze, a Vancouver-based nonpartisan organization that advocates on behalf of young Canadians for the purpose of researching a first ever federal home equity tax credit. Conservatives like Pierre Poilievre, man, I do apologize if I'm brutalizing your last name, but quickly jumped on this story as proof of a nefarious intent of the Liberals. Is it nefarious? Like, I don't know. Like, it implies that this tax is just a terrible idea and evil and bad. Maybe this is tongue in cheek. I get that, but um, I really don't. Like, I guess you're just, I don't know, you're trying to have fun with it. I realize that this is just somebody just writing a random article online. Maybe it's not. I don't know if he's an actual journalist or whatever, what have you, because I didn't look into him. I just came across my Google News. So I just looked it up, looked into it, and yeah, I was just absolutely blown away about how terrible this is. Like the fact that this is how some people think that anyways, I'll just keep going. A blanket tax on equity that Canadians have in their homes is obviously not going to be our top priority for a government that recently appointed a minister of middle class, and whose re-election chances will largely be determined in places like Toronto's 905 region. Not going to be a top priority for a government that recently appointed a minister of the middle class. I mean, I think it's interesting to say that a home equity tax would necessarily be something that clashes with with prosperity of the middle class. I mean, if it's not something that would be a clash, then why would it be something that would be opposed by someone that is a minister of the middle class prosperity? If if this is a good idea and this was going to improve the well-being of these people, then why would it be something that would that the minister of the middle class be opposed to? Unless it's just a terrible idea and all you're going to do is increase taxes for the sake of increasing taxes, not necessarily for the sake of increasing or growing tax revenues, but for the just for the purpose of creating an additional burden on certain folks. So, but partisan puffery aside, perhaps we should be talking about a home equity tax. No, why? Why? Are we just trying to tax literally everything? Like, why not? We just can sit. You can sit down and come up with taxes for literally everything. I don't understand what the purpose of that is. While the older generation may jealously guard the wealth accruing in their homes, I think it's more. I think do you can you do jealously guard it? I mean, if somebody is eyeing what you have and they want to try to take it away from you, is that are they jealous of their own what they have, or are you jealous of what they have and you're trying to take it from them? That's an odd way of phrasing it. Jealously guard. Are they jealous? Why would they be jealous? They're in possession of it. I understand what you mean, but I'm just saying it's weird. Like they already have it. You're the jealous one. You're trying to you see you think they have something that they shouldn't be entitled to, or you think they have something that they didn't work for, that they're undeserving of, and you would like to take it from them. So so the ones paying the price, figuratively and literally, are their children and grandchildren. So for millennials, home ownership is an increasingly unrealistic dream. Generation Squeeze noted that takes on average 13 years for first-time homebuyers to save enough money for a proper 20% down payment, a figure that rises to 21 years in Toronto and almost 30 years in Vancouver. Those years spent saving are ones that they can't use to pay down a mortgage or build the kind of equity that millions of older Canadians have managed to accrue. I still don't understand what the point of any of this is. Like, okay, sure, they have dreams of home ownership, but they're not entitled to live wherever they want to live. Are they entitled to that? Is that something that should be guaranteed to a citizen that you should be entitled to live wherever you want to live without having to make compromises? Or you should be able to live the life you want to live with no compromise? Because I'm sure if you go an hour or 2 hours outside the GTA, you're going to be able to afford a home. But I mean, are you still going to have a lot of the same comforts that you become used to? Maybe not. You're probably going to have to sacrifice something. Sacrifices would have to be made. Uh, I just don't like. It just sounds like you should be like we should be able to guarantee a certain lifestyle for someone. Like, oh, they have something. They were able to get the benefit out of something. You should also be able to get the benefit out of it. So I'm going to take it from them and I give it to you. Like, what are we trying to like? How is that actually beneficial? I mean, because we also have to build out these other areas too. We can't just build in the GTA. We're going to have people just on top of each other. We need to develop out areas outside of the GTA. If we keep focusing on continuously developing the GTA, well, you're just going to end up with a lot of the issues that we have right now, which is the prices are going to continue. I mean, because the prices going up is necessarily a function of increasing demand and supply. Well, there's other stuff, supply not increasing as at the same clip, right? But there's other things as well. Um, there's actually a good article in Better Dwelling about how money laundering can affect the prices of homes, right? It was a good article. It was just talking about the marginal purchaser and how they kind of pushing up prices. Anyways, because they have different motivations when it comes to making a home purchase. They're not looking necessarily at budget or anything of that nature. They're just looking at being able to saddle their money somewhere, right? So having a high cost for them is fine. It's one of the safest things they can do. Small transaction costs. for a money launderer, that is. Anyway, so um, the high cost of getting into the market today means that they spend far more of their incomes on shelter than their parents did. Yeah, like I said, a lot of this is just a lot of just whining. Like it's just not making really justifying what they're trying to do. So, or what his point is. Okay, so 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 what they want to do is target speculators and the ultra wealthy. Uh, how is this a speculation if it's your primary residence? Like, what are you're speculating with your primary residence? So are you planning on flipping the property? So I mean, if you own a property for less than so many years and you're gonna try to flip the property, I'm pretty sure we have something in place for that. Like what? Like this article is just terrible. Like this is just anyway. So that seems far more palatable and politically viable, especially if the proceeds are used to invest in affordable housing and expanding access to it. Who is opposed to affordable housing? You get more affordable housing by building more houses, by having a larger supply of housing. Like, is there a shortage of housing? That's the question. I mean, if you want to increase or decrease the price, just increase the amount of homes. Now, and then also increase the amount of businesses so people can work close to home. You'll decrease the value of being in Toronto. You decrease the value of being in Mississauga, Brampton, or wherever it is by having more viable options, living arrangements. That's what you do. Instead of creating like I mean, if housing prices is really the the issue that you're trying to target, the first thing you shouldn't be thinking of is a tax. The first thing you should be thinking of how do we incentivize businesses and builders to build more homes and also to have people either working more remotely or having offices in places where it's less expensive, where there's less expensive, so they can make living in those further regions more viable. Like, you shouldn't have to. The pricing of your home shouldn't be determined by how far you are away from Toronto. It shouldn't. Like, you should have all these viable centers. London is coming up. You know, Cambridge, Kitchener, Waterloo, all these other Guelph, all these other places are the lovely places to live. The pricing is a lot better than Toronto, and a lot of folks can afford to buy out there. It's we have to stop having or making policies just based on what's going on in Vancouver and Toronto. Uh, Vancouver and Toronto, they're not the center of Canada by any means, right? And we can't make policies that are blanket policies just to attack any problems that we see going in those areas in those areas. And yeah, so I mean, like you can read the rest of this article. It's just yeah, I mean, he's just trying to come up with some sort of rationale behind why he wants to have uh, yeah, why he thinks the tax is a good idea. And for all the fear mongering being done right now around Generation Squeeze and its allegedly dangerous research, the reality is far more benign. Its objective, after all, is to identify solutions that could level the playing field between renters and owners. But what does that mean? The playing field in the sense, I mean, if they want to, like owning a home comes along with a lot of costs, right? There's a lot of costs associated with owning a home, and then the selling, the disposition of it, the maintenance is quite something. But yeah, you do get a lot of benefit out of that too. Like with you, if you're renting, uh, you know, where are you renting? Why are you renting? What are you doing with the money that's not spent on rent? What are you doing with the money that you don't spend on the repairs? Right? Like what were the trade-offs for you? Like, was it not was renting? Did you rent instead of buying, or are you renting because you just don't need to buy? Because not everybody needs to buy. But are you saving your money? Are you investing? What are you doing with your cash? Do you even have a budget? I think most Canadians don't even have a budget. They don't even know where their money's going. So the idea that we should just start off with taxing people because some people own a home and some people want a home and they can't buy a home because in certain areas that they want to buy it are too expensive. So we should start taxing people that already own homes. Just seems a little insane to me. I mean, that's my opinion. It just seems lazy. It seems like selfish. It seems entitled. It seems insane. And yeah, so we need to make it so that so that no Canadian relies on gains in housing wealth to feel secure, and we need to rethink the policies that, by encouraging the financialization of housing, push the cost to buy or rent even further out of reach. I would like to know exactly what that means because I mean a lot of I guess the quote unquote financialization of housing has actually helped keep prices low. I mean it's allowed other access to um, is allowed access to the market for folks by allowing insured mortgages, for instance, by reducing the risk on any one particular institution. Like, how is that a bad thing? What exactly do they mean? Like, because I know I've heard usually the people that throw that term around, they just look at the financial sector as evil in general, and they look at everybody that works in that sector as a shark. So, they're already coming from a biased view. But I'm genuinely curious what they mean by or how they see financialization of housing as a negative. Like I guess I would look that up because I'm curious. To push the cost to buy or rent a home even further out of reach, because really the cost of a home, like the cost of anything, is a function of supply and demand. Like if we don't have enough homes where there's demand, where there's also demand for those homes, then you're going to like if there's you have a set supply of homes and then that the supply there's a lot of demand for it and this ever increasing demand, then the prices are going to go up. It's really that simple, unless we're creating other communities where there is a demand for that because there's also resources that they have all the stores and you have businesses, the jobs, all that kind of stuff. That there's I guess there's arts and all that kind of stuff, right? Like, unless you're creating these viable areas, is people are always going to want to live in the GTA or somewhere close to that, and and just creating a tax isn't a way to solve that issue. If that's the issue you're trying to solve, if you're just trying to raise or you're just looking for a new way to tax people, then I guess yeah, you just tax them, tax the equity in the home. But just know what you're doing. Don't say you're doing this because you want to solve an issue of housing, of the pricing of housing, because this is a terrible way of approaching it. It doesn't get to the core of the issue at all. Anyways, so this is just me kind of rambling on. I saw this morning and I was just absolutely appalled that somebody would take the time to write this. And I would love to know everybody else's opinion on it. And yeah, like just comment below because I'm very curious what other people think. Maybe I'm just completely out to lunch. Maybe this is the right thing. Maybe everybody else wants taxes. Maybe the people that own these homes, they want to be taxed. They want their equity to be taxed when they sell. So. Anyways, you have yourself a great rest of your day, and hopefully you enjoyed my ramblings. Take care.